Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to Switch to Life. And today is not going to be a DreamWorks movie. Today we're going to be reviewing Disney's latest animated feature, Wish. After months of waiting, this movie has finally released on Disney Plus and I can finally talk about it. And I gotta say that I really like Disney's approach that they took with this movie. Honestly, I haven't been to the theaters to watch a Disney movie in forever, and the main reason, I can just wait for the film to come to Disney Plus. It seems Disney's new strategy is to make it so that you have to wait forever for the film to come to Disney Plus, and by the time it does, you forgot that the movie even exists. So you have to go watch it in theaters while it's still relatively new. That was one of the biggest concerns I had in my Disney is Dying video, and I'm glad they found a solution to it. But anyway, I really enjoyed this movie. I honestly don't see why critics and audiences hated this film. Sure, I will admit that it is repetitive and it just doesn't really add much to Disney, but that's the thing. This movie wasn't meant to be something new. It was meant to be a love letter to the Disney films of the past. So it's no wonder that it was filled to the brim with Disney tropes and nostalgia and everything. This movie was perfect. It was a love letter to the past 100 years of Disney animation, and I loved it. But is this the best film that Disney has ever made? No, not by a long shot, unfortunately. I can see why people might be disappointed in that, but honestly, there's no way you can beat iconic classics like The Lion King or Aladdin. Still, I really thought this movie was awesome and definitely worthy of being called a love letter to Disney, especially because it opened with some really iconic Disney tropes. It had Disney font with Disney Presents, and then it opened up with a book. It also closed with the same book, and that's really cool. Classic Disney films. And not to mention, I really loved the animation. The animation was awesome. A perfect blend of the modern CGI animation combined with the traditional 2D animation of the past, and I loved that. I honestly really hope that Disney dives into that animation style more in the future. Maybe not in their next movie since it's a sequel, but maybe in their next original film they can try to bring back this animation style. I would really enjoy that. And of course, you can't dive into a Disney movie without talking about the music. And the music here, it was awesome. They definitely nailed it. Every single one of those songs was awesome. But my personal favorite was This Is the Thanks I Get. I really loved the beat and the voice acting of Chris Pine. Speaking of, voice acting in this movie was awesome. I loved it. But the main reason that I really like the song is it just me, or does King Magnifico sound a lot like Disney? Let me explain. In the past, King Magnifico built up a kingdom that was magical, full of light and wonder, and it even granted wishes. And that was really awesome. He welcomed people with open arms just so they could give him his wishes and he could protect them and keep them safe. Unfortunately, he ended up being threatened by the competition, which caused him to use his people's wishes and their dreams and use them for his own personal gain. And he used their powers to end up fueling his own. And basically, he just became power hungry. He stopped caring about how people saw him. He stopped caring about his image. And he pretty much became an evil villain who was bent on corrupting and controlling the entire world. And that is a lot like Disney. Disney was this company of light and wonderment, especially when it was under the control of Walt Disney. But in the modern day, with so much competition, they're trying to find ways to purchase the competition and use their IP or snuff out the other competition that they can't buy. And of course, like King Magnifico, Disney ends up using the other company's IP to the point where it actually hurts the brand and the image, and he doesn't care. So yeah, at this point in time, I literally can't stop thinking about Mickey Mouse singing This Is the Thanks I Get, and that's really funny to me. But in all seriousness, the music of this movie was really awesome, and I enjoyed it. And then, of course, there's the characters. I really enjoyed King Magnifico, mostly because he was the first actual Disney villain that we got in a really, really really, 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 really long time. Seriously, it's about time Disney gave us a villain. And then, of course, there's the baby goat, Valentino. I really enjoyed Valentino, but when it came to the main character herself, Asha, I don't think I actually liked her character. She was nice and definitely someone we were rooting for, but unfortunately, there's nothing that makes her stand out compared to the other Disney princesses, especially because she's not even a princess herself. And then, of course, there's the Disney references, which I really love. There are so many Disney Easter eggs that it's literally impossible for me to list them all, but I'm just gonna try. Among my favorite, there was the bear named Prince John, who was based off the bear from the Robin Hood movie, and then, of course, a deer named Bambi, and not to mention all of the hidden Mickeys everywhere, but my personal favorite reference was,
how about Neverland?
And with that out of the way, that's pretty much everything that I can talk about without diving into actual spoilers. So now it's time to dive into the story. So what you may not know is that this movie was basically supposed to be an origin story to all of Disney and pretty much be the origin of how Asha is the first Disney character to wish upon a star. What this film sadly does not do, and honestly I never expected it, was give us a clear timeline on how the Disney movies are supposed to be set up. And that doesn't really make sense, especially considering that Bambi appears in this movie as his adult form, and yet his mother was killed by a gun, something that would not be invented for centuries. But, I mean, yeah, honestly, when you try to connect these films, it gets complicated, and let's just say that Bambi is a popular deer name, and this has nothing to do with the Bambi from the film. But yeah, so now let's actually dive into the story. So King Magnifico was actually this young man who ended up realizing that people had a bunch of wishes, but unfortunately they were kind of unattainable, and he wanted to do something about it. So he became a sorcerer, founded a kingdom, and invited everyone to come over and give their wishes to him. In this way, he could either grant the wishes or keep them safe and protect the people so that they wouldn't have any unattainable goals. Unfortunately, it eventually got to a point where Magnifico stopped caring about the people and started only caring about what was good for the kingdom of Rosas. Anyway, Asha was given an interview to become the king's apprentice, and unfortunately, she ends up saying how much she actually cares about the kingdom.
I care too much.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's my weakness.
And all of its people, and how everyone should have their wishes granted, not just a select few who are good for the kingdom. And Magnifico's not really a big fan of this. Now, what really motivates Asha is the fact that her grandfather, I believe, is actually turning 100 years old, and he still is waiting to get his wish granted. So she tries to convince King Magnifico to let him get his wish, which is just to create something that will inspire the next generation. Unfortunately, King Magnifico deems this as too vague and possibly dangerous to the kingdom, so he decides to not grant that wish, and this causes Asha to be really sad, especially when she tries to tell her grandfather that Magnifico will not be granting her his wish, and he's really upset. So Asha makes a wish on a star. Now, the wish is actually kind of complicated, so let me explain. Asha was a 12-year-old girl when her dad died, and her father always told her that the stars are there to guide us. So she ended up wishing for some guidance and wished for the stars to be closer. Unfortunately, this ended up bringing an actual wishing star down to the kingdom of Rosas, and now the Star and Asha have to work together to stop King Magnifico from keeping the wishes to himself, at which point, with the help of her 7 friends, who are actually a reference to the 7 dwarves, by the way, she ends up breaking into the king's study, grabbing her grandfather's wish, and she ends up bringing it to him, and he is actually happy that a part of him is returned, and of course, his wish isn't actually granted, but now he has the chance to actually go for it. Unfortunately, this is when King Magnifico shows up, and to punish Asha, he literally crushes her mother's wish. And what he didn't know was that inside that wish was a lot of power, something that would make his forbidden magic even more powerful. And then, of course, he still tries to capture the star, but they manage to escape. King Magnifico, using forbidden magic, ends up using the wishes and crushes them, giving himself even more power, and creates an evil forbidden staff. Fun fact, he actually makes it from a branch. If I had a nickel for every time Chris Pine voiced a character who used a wooden branch as their source of power, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Anyway, the only reason that Asha was discovered to be the traitor, in a way, was because of her friend Simon, who wanted to get his wish granted, and then King Magnifico actually does grant this wish, which was something like to be the king's most loyal and courageous knight. Unfortunately, King Magnifico uses his forbidden magic to corrupt the wish, which makes it so that Simon isn't actually Simon. He's literally a slave to the king. And that's really unfortunate because he hands over the rest of Asha's friends. And now Asha and her friends decide to team up to help defeat the king alongside the queen, who was actually a really good character in my opinion. Some people have been complaining that maybe King Magnifico and the queen should have been like a co-evil couple and they together should have been main villains, but I think it was better if the queen was actually a good character who saw the kindness and generosity in people as a trait worth valuing instead of just being another power-hungry villain. So anyway, the queen allies herself with Asha and her friends, and they make a plan to have Asha distract the king by leading him away from Rosas, while her friends break into the castle and collect all of the wishes and try to give them back to the people. And for the most part, the plan works, except for the fact that Asha wasn't actually leading away the King Magnifico. She was leading away Simon, who was magically disguised as King Magnifico, and King Magnifico had set a trap to make it so that he could capture the star, and he ends up collecting all of the power of the wishes and the star, pretty much becoming one of the most powerful villains in Disney. Earlier in the movie, Asha was told that everything in the universe is made of the same matter, from the stars to the living creatures, including humans. And that's really cool. It's like Kung Fu Panda, with Chi being the essence of all living things. So with no way to combat King Magnifico's forbidden magic, Asha looks out to the people and decides that they should all band together to make wishes on each other. And that ends up actually working, and together they manage to defeat King Magnifico's magic. Now, if this wasn't a Disney movie, that would be a stupid thing to do. But honestly, throughout the Disney movies, we've seen time and time again that togetherness and high spirits and joy are the keys to combating forbidden magic. You know, magic like Maleficence or the Evil Queen, or, I can't actually name a lot of villains that use forbidden magic. Never mind. Anyway, the film ends with them defeating King Magnifico, freeing all of the wishes as they return to the people, and then they also free Star, who returns to the sky to become the wishing star that all of the Disney characters will wish upon one day in the future. We learn that King Magnifico was ended up trapped in the mirror realm, which I know he loves mirrors, but that's kind of a cruel fate. He essentially becomes the man in the mirror that we see in Snow White, and that's really sad. Anyway, the queen ends up returning peace to the kingdom of Rosas, and all of the citizens now have their wishes, which means not only are their hearts whole, but at the same time, they can now chase after those wishes, as unattainable as they may be, but they actually have a chance to make them come true now. The last thing that Star does before he returns to the heavens is give Asha a magic wand, and she essentially becomes the fairy godmother. You know, bippity-boppity boo. I'm surprised they didn't actually put that reference in the movie. And then Valentino, who had his wish of being able to talk granted, comes up with a new wish.
I dream of a utopian metropolis where all mammals are equal and wear clothes.
That's a great Zootopia reference. In fact, if they don't give Valentino some kind of statue in Zootopia 2, that is wasted Easter egg potential. And then the movie ends by showing a bunch of credits where Star makes a bunch of stardust fall into the shapes of iconic Disney characters throughout the century. And then the movie ends with an end credit scene where Asha's grandfather makes his wish come true by writing the song When You Wish Upon a Star, which is probably the most iconic Disney song of all time. So yeah, honestly, I really enjoyed this movie. It definitely comes across as a love letter to Disney. It doesn't offer anything new, but it does provide you with a sense of nostalgia, familiarity, and everything that you've come to love from all of the Disney films of the past. And that's really cool. But what did you guys think of the movie? Are you among the haters, or do you actually think that it's a good movie? Make sure to leave your comments down below. But honestly, I thought this movie was so good that it's actually got me in the mood to have a Disney marathon. I don't actually plan to do reviews for Disney movies, but if you guys want me to, make sure to leave those comments down below as well. Anyway, make sure to like and subscribe so you can keep up to date on all things DreamWorks, as this is a channel that's mostly focused on DreamWorks content. But with that in mind, I hope you're all staying safe out there, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye-bye.
With unsanded mahogany.
Good find, Valentino.
My butt found it.